Okay, it is a little bit after the top of the hour. I want to welcome everyone to our Apex ERP Essentials series. Today's topic is increased productivity with Infor GL Report Designer. I'm Lynette Thibault, one of the Apex ERP practice managers, and our presenter today is Jim Wadilla, one of our financial consultants here at Apex. Before I turn it over to Jim, let me get a little housekeeping out of the way. Jim, if you'll advance slide, please. Our goal today is to share our experience and provide guidance for using GL Report Designer in Infor Financials and Supply Management, or FSM. We encourage you to ask questions in either the chat or the Q&A function. We'll be covering a lot of ground, but we do plan to have some time at the end to answer questions. And then finally, we'll be recording this webinar for access on our YouTube channel after the presentation. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about Apex. We're a division of ASGN Incorporated. Many of the Fortune 500 in all, servicing many of the Fortune 500 in all major industries. Our solutions are highly scalable and deliverable nationally with over 180 unique IT skill sets and over 70 branch locations across the US, Europe, Mexico, and India. Specifically, our Infor practice has experience in more than just healthcare to service many Infor clients as well as those using Epic, Cerner, and Kronos. Overall, our consulting services team can fill just about any role. Next slide, please. Without going into all 18 areas of our solution offerings, our Infor practice offers global solutions per industry through digital innovations like Infor, Epic, and Agile. Workforce mobilization through staffing to support any size implementation, and our modern enterprise solutions cover migrations to standing up a PMO and running it for you. Next slide, please. Jim, next slide.
Yeah, hold on one second. Having some problem advancing it. There it goes.
There you go. Most of all, our Infor practice works with clients beyond the cloud, offering the right services at the right time. You can click it. Before the project, our advisory services guide the client through the selection process and assess organizational readiness through BPA and process design. We offer total program governance and change management so our clients off on the right foot for their implementation. During the project, we offer prescriptive guidance to reduce risk, duration, and cost. And then finally, after the project, managed services helps clients to sustain their investment through on-demand service, staff augmentation, and incident support to be your partner before, during, and after the project. Next slide, please. So enough about what we do at Apex. I will turn the presentation back over to Jim to tell you a little bit about himself and then jump into increasing productivity with GL Report Designer. Take it away, Jim.
Thanks, Lynette. Welcome, everyone. My name is Jim Wadilla, and I am a consultant at Apex in the financial space. And I actually started my consulting career about 26 years ago. So I'm very familiar with Oracle as well as Infor Lawson S3, versions V10, V9, V8, as well as the reporting tools that were available for those versions. Okay. I'll just go on to the next slide here. So standard agenda, we'll have an overview and then we'll talk about building a report, which involves rows and columns. And I'm going to go through the slide pretty quickly because I want to be able to jump into the live system. So if you just bear with me. The first thing here, in terms of Infor's reporting approach, you can see in the middle there for executive and operational reporting, right? They recommend the BI financial reporting, right? Which is kind of like the trial balance that's offered, the balance sheet, the comparative income statement, and so on. And of course, GL Report Designer, which is going to be our main focus here. And why Report Designer? Well, it's intended to provide quick operational, right, financial reporting So it's near real time, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. And reports can be created by a financial user without IT intervention. So there's no need to know LPL, right? The landmark pattern language, or any complex expressions. Okay. Report Designer uses FSM, GL data, and dimension structures. And Report Designer uses row and column layout. So conceptually, it's a little bit like the old GL report writer, but it's an entirely different tool. And reports are exportable to Excel, CSV, or PDF formats. Okay, so it's seamlessly integrated. And the last item, in terms of security, obviously we do have security, and roles, but there's built-in user security to help control modifications to your core operational reports. So there's the ability to lock any corporate reports, let's say, that normally get distributed every month, so that no one else can go in and alter them. Okay. Speaking of security, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this slide, but there are basically power users who can create, modify, and delete reports. And then you have your view-only users, right? Can only run reports. And you can see the roles on the bottom there for each. Okay. And in terms of GL report designer differentiation, basically, Report Designer creates aggregations based on the dimensions in the row setup instead of a hierarchy-based display. Report Designer allows the user to build measures that they cannot build in BI reports. Report Designer uses balances for all the reporting. It is not transactional. However, drill around is available on the report. So even if you run a PDF or an Excel report, you can do drill back for the first few columns. Okay. And lastly, I think it's important to note, Report Designer does not use the cubes. Okay, it is columnar. So there is a replication set. So, and speaking of which, I think it's important to understand how Report Designer data is updated. Okay, so the first item here says when the global ledger has GL transactions posted, the GL data is sent into columnar tables for storage. Okay. And then it says that, and I think it's good to know, the replication set, or those columnar tables, are part of this replication set. That's called FSM_columnar GLST. Okay. And it says that the GL data is sent from the global ledger into these columnar tables, right? And then it's sent to the GL report designer. It says after the replication is complete, the GL data is up to date and is now available to be used right away, and you can report on it right away. Okay. The replication set can be scheduled to run. So each organization decides if they want to run it nightly, twice a day, hourly, whatever the case might be. Okay. And it says here that the GL report designer will be updated with new GL total data for reporting. Now, you may have heard of GL, a table called GL total before, and there is one like that in your cubes. However, this is a different table. Once again, it's in the columnar replication set. Okay. And this is just a screenshot. Once we get into the live system, I'll show you this as well. But this is one of the ways that you can now access Report Designer. So in the upper left there, you can see that the role is the new global ledger role that became available. And in the left panel there in the menu, if you go to analysis, right, you'll see this landing page. And then in the far right, there's a tile for Report Designer, right? And you can see that you can go directly to the dashboard from here. You can go into Run Results, which is your Report Designer log. And then there's Refresh Data. And I wanted to show you this so you can see the refresh data. So it says on the bottom there in the display, the last refresh in this example was July 10th, right, at 3:07 p.m. But notice on the bottom right there, in the other tile where it says cube, right, the FEG cube has a different refresh date. So again, I just want to emphasize the fact that we are not using the cubes for GL Report Designer. Okay, it's strictly using a replication spec. Okay, let's jump in and talk about building a report. Okay, so basically every report has to have a row and a column, right? And if you think of the rows kind of as the horizontal portion of the report, so to speak, it's just all the information, right? Typically, in the body of the report, you kind of envision it that way. It's all the information that's in the body of your report. Oftentimes on the left side, but it doesn't have to be, on a typical report. And in this example that you see here, right, there is a row view, and it's basically containing accounts. So this row has a dimension for the account, and you can see it says retained earnings, and then it has an account 39910 undistributed retained earnings. Then below that has other comprehensive income, and it looks like it just has 3999 error suspense here, and so on. So that is your row view, okay? And you can have different dimensions that you can select in the row. In this case, like we said, the most common one is accounts. So that's the example here. And then to the right, if you look at the column view, right, or if you will, the vertical portion of your report, you can see that there's 3 columns in this report. There's column 1 is current period, then column 2 is prior period, and it looks like the third column is kind of like a variance percentage, right? So these column views and report views can be used in various reports. So they can be reused, so to speak. So I may have several reports where I have this same column view. I want to see current period, prior period, and a variance. So I've got maybe some operational expense reports. I've got some different income statements that I have, and so on, where I always want to see current period, prior period, and my variance percentage. So I would create that column view once, and then I can use it on several reports. Some of the recommendations, and the first one coming from Infor, is that they recommend that you mock up your report that you want to create before you start. To just have that visual in front of you, it just makes it easier. So it can be, you can mock it up in Excel, or if you have a report from your previous financial system, or even from your V10 or V9 report writer, you can take that and then build it here in Report Designer. Okay. The most common types of reports the most common types of rows in the reports typically contain accounts, as I mentioned before, right? But it really can be any dimension. So I can have, if you picture a balance sheet, right? I can have accounts, right, as my dimension in the rows. In other words, I can have, cash, right, or assets, and then cash, and then, different accounts, like different cash accounts listed, and so on, right? Or if you want to think of another type of report, maybe I have a report where I want to just have in my rows all of the different types of departments, okay? And I'm going to advance the slide here really quickly just to kind of show you that. So maybe I have a report where row where I just want to see all my different departments. So 1104 ICU cardiac in this example, 1105 ICU cardiovascular, and so on. So obviously this differs from the balance sheet type report that I was talking about earlier, right? Where the row dimension is very different. And in this case, I only have one dimension in this report. And I wanted to point out that when I created this report, I said I wanted to display the code and the description, right? So we saw that I have the code 1104 and each description, right, for each department. I could have said that I just want the description only. So in other words, I just wanted to say ICU cardiac, ICU cardiovascular, and so on. Okay, so or the third option would be just the code, right? I could say I don't want the description. I just want the code 1104, 1105, 1113, and so on. Okay. If I take this report and expand on it, I could have a report with more than one dimension. So I could say that, well, my first dimension is still my department, okay? But then I added a second dimension for the account. And when I added that second dimension for the account, I said, I just want the code, right? No description, no account description. So if you look in the sample report here, right, I've got department 1104 again, ICU cardiac, both the code and description. But then my second dimension was account. And I said, I just wanted the code. So you can see here, it's listing the account number 72000, 72250, and so on, right? And so this report has 2 row dimensions, okay? Just to give you an idea. Also, one other thing I'll add here is that you'll notice that the department is showing up on the first row line. If I wanted to, there is an option for it to repeat and show and display that on every row line. So I could have had it, I could have had 1104 ICU cardiac on every single line if I wanted to, next to each account. Okay, that's an option. Okay. Another type of report that's kind of exciting is the composite report. Okay, so Infor allows you in Report Designer to take multiple reports and combine them. Okay, and the really neat thing is that they no longer need to have the same number of columns as they did in the past. So in this example report that you see here, this was actually 2 reports originally. On the top, the report was for hours and stats, and this was unit data. So the actuals and the budget that you see there, this is unit data. So it looks like FTE, was for one of the accounts there, some type of statistical account, maybe, and then another account 90007 for hours. This is all unit data. Okay, so this is kind of the classic example that Infor uses. And then the second report was an expense report. And you can see on the bottom there, right? These are amounts. So you had total expenses, operating expenses, salary expense, lodging expense, supply expense, and so on. So these are amounts, of course. And you'll notice that the columns are not the same exactly in terms of there's only 2 columns on the first report on top, and there's 4 columns, I believe, on the expense report on the bottom. So this is kind of new. There were 2 CUs last year in April and October where they now allow you to combine multiple reports, like I said, without having the same number of columns. And this is just one example. There's other types of composite reports that you can create as well. Well, hopefully we'll have a chance to look at some of that later. One of the confusing things when you're using Report Designer initially is you'll notice that there's a status referring to a report generation. And what this is this is not the same as actually running your report. When you initially create your report, you have to run a report generation. And what that does is it actually builds the layout and the filters for the report. And the first time you do that, it's going to take a little bit, it might take a little bit of time, but anytime after that, it's going to always be quicker when you generate a report. Why would I need to generate a report potentially, at some point down the line, right? Well, it says there in the double asterisk there, any changes made to your rows, columns, or report selection or report parameters, right, will cause your report status to go into out of sync. So some of you may have seen that at times. And that's because you made some type of change, just like it says. So in that case, I then need to go in again and generate the report. But as I said, if it's not the first time, if it's the second time or third time or fourth time, it's going to go a lot quicker. Okay. Ideally, you want to see, the status to always be green and to say generated as in the little snippet on the bottom there. Okay. So speaking of status and running reports, before you can run any report, right, and create an output, the status must be generated. And when you do click on Run Report, which we'll see in a bit once we get in the system, you may have noticed that sometimes when you run certain reports, the parameters are a little different. Okay. So, and that's not unusual. Okay. Because when I create a report, for example, I might say that one of my parameters that I want for other users to have is to be able to choose an entity, an accounting entity, or what company in my case they want to run the report for. So I plan to make my report public and allow other staff accounts to use it. And I want to make sure that they have a parameter so they can choose, the company that they want to run it for their respective companies, for example, right? So that accounting entity parameter may appear in some cases on some reports, but maybe not on others. Okay. And also, for example, on the right there, below balance type, there's fiscal year and fiscal month. It may not always be fiscal year and fiscal month. It may be fiscal year and fiscal quarter, depending on how you created the report. Okay, so you may have a report with a column, where you have first quarter, another column for second quarter, and so on. So based on how you created the report, the parameter here may not necessarily be fiscal month. Okay. In terms of the balance type, that's another option. You will typically see that on most reports, unless your report is a posting only report. So if you have a report where the row is just posting accounts, or you have a report where the rows are, let's say, a dimension and they're departments, but they're only my posting departments, right? I don't want to have a hierarchy. I just want my posting departments, possibly. Then yeah, you will not have this balance type option because it's going to be consistent with the way your EPM reporting is, okay, which is typically by natural balance. What does that mean in terms of the selections here? What does that mean, natural balance versus financial report balance? Well, your natural balance is where your revenue, your liability, and equity, right, typically have a credit balance or they're negative. So they appear as negative values on the report. If you would prefer, you can select financial report balance, in which case your revenue, liability, and equity will appear as positive amounts. Okay. And the last thing here I just want to touch on is, how do I make a report public or private? There's sometimes people aren't sure how to do that. If you can go, when you get into Report Designer, there's a section or a tab for report grouping, and you can add report groups or report folder if you prefer to think of it that way. And then you can associate reports with it. Okay. And this is where you would indicate whether the report's going to be public, where other users can use that report, right? But keep in mind, if you make a report public, you can lock it so that they cannot alter your report, right? Or you can set the report to be private, in which case only the creator and the application administrator can access the report. Okay. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to jump into the live system. There we go. And I've already logged into our test area here. And right now I'm in the, actually, it looks like I'm in the application administrator role. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change my role, and I'm going to go down to Global Ledger, as I mentioned earlier. Excuse me. And then I'm going to go into the menu here for analysis. Within analysis here, you'll notice that that same tile that I had in the PowerPoint for Report Designer, where I can access my dashboard. This is how you would get into everything you need in the Report Designer. We'll do that in a second. I can see my run results or my log. And again, here's my refresh data option. So if I need to refresh the data, I can do it from here. And of course, it's showing me my last refresh date was today, July 31st at 12:01. Okay. So I wonder if that was scheduled, because that's not what I had here earlier this morning. And then down below, you'll see that the cube here also has the last refresh date. But again, Report Designer is not using the cubes. Okay, I just wanted to just stress that once more. Okay, so this is not typically the way I usually go into Report Designer. Another way I can access it, and there are a lot of ways, is I can go in as the staff accountant, okay, which I often do. And so if I go in as the staff accountant here in this particular role, I can go down to my reports and expand that. And I can go down to my Report Designer right here. So Report Designer does need to be enabled. So probably your IT folks will need to enable it. Then you'll see it here. And then I was going to go into Report Designer right off the bat here, but you'll notice below that here, there's a Report Designer log as well. Let's go in there first, maybe. I'm going to click on that. And this is going to show me my Report Designer log. And it's going to show all the reports that I've run so for example, here, a balance sheet report by company, and along with the start time and the end time. So I can see how long it took my report to run and if it's completed successfully. Okay. You'll notice in the log message here, it says that it exported the burst report 1000 balance sheet by company, and it's been created successfully. Okay. Obviously, this is not a burst report. This is a report designer, but we use some of the functionality within Burst, right, to create the output. And also, besides my reports that I see listed here, I noticed down here that there's no report name. That's because this was when I had done some refresh on the data. Okay, and you can see here it was started at 7:05. I'm sorry, 6:05 a.m. and it ended at 6:05:53 a.m. So it took about 50 seconds, and of course it'll take longer depending on the amount of data you have. Okay, so I just wanted to show you the log very quickly. Let's actually now jump in to Report Designer. So I'm going to go back to the panel on the left here and click on Report Designer. Excuse me. And what you're going to see initially is your dashboard. Okay. So, or your overview tab if you prefer. And let's just take a look at what we have here. So in this section here, I have all of my reports listed. Okay. I can minimize that. So I have all of my reports listed here. So I have the first one here is an income statement, month to date, it looks like. I have another report here, income statement, monthly trend, a balance sheet, and so on and so on. Okay. Let's go back to the income statement month to date for a second. So I'll just click on that here. And then I'm going to see my report summary, okay, my overview. So I have my report ID. That's the name of the report. I have a title and a description. And most importantly, it's showing me here my row. Okay, so this is the name of the row that I use. I called it account row with levels. Okay, and then here on the right, this is the column view that I used, which that column view was called MTD YTD variances. And if you'll notice on the bottom here, there's a section that shows me my column dimension details. So what this is saying is that for this particular column view, right, my first column was actuals, then I had budget, and then I had variance and so on. Okay. And and also with my row here, this one that I had shown before, accounts row details, I also see some row dimension details. Okay. In this case, basically it's telling me that the dimension I chose for my row was a chart account. Okay. So very useful. And what's really nice is that last year they had added this display for the replication refresh date. So I can see now if I do run a report, design a report, you know, the information is going to be as of 7/31, 12:01 p.m. So all my information will be as of this date. Okay. Now, if let's say somebody posted something within the last few minutes and I need to include that information on my report, maybe I need to run a refresh right away. I don't want to wait till it's scheduled. So I would go here into the ellipsis, and you can see there's an option to refresh report designer data. And here, this is a standard job submission, so you can run it once very quickly, click OK. Obviously, you could put in a stop time and, you know, schedule it and so on as well. I'm not going to do that right now, but I just wanted to show it to you. And there is actually one other place here, and I know we haven't looked at it yet, but if I go to this reports tab very quickly, there is an ability in the ellipsis on the far right here to also refresh your report designer data, right? So if I click that, once again, I'll get the job submission, and I can always click OK if I need it immediately. I'm going to click cancel once more, and I'm going to go back to my overview or dashboard. So here also, you'll notice that on the bottom here, it says my status for this report is green. It's generated, right? That's what you ideally would like to see, right? If it's not generated, like if in the one example, I have a report down here, an old report that somebody did, where you'll notice the status is out of sync. Okay, if that's the case, you'll notice that I cannot run the report because this is not available to me. Okay, it's grayed out. So I would need to go in here and click on Generate Report in order for the system to create that layout, right, and the filters for my report so that I can run it. So this is just an old example. Let me go back to my income statement once more here. And as you can see, the status is still generated. So I do not need to generate the report and layout in the filter. I could instead just go right over here from this dashboard and run my reports. So I could click on Run Report here, and let's take a look at what we have available. We have a distribution group. So if you want to distribute the report to, let's say, the finance team or something like that, if you have a group set up for that, you can do that here. Or you could put in your report format, PDF, Excel, or CSV. So I'll keep it at PDF. You do need to put in your reporting basis. I'm going to select my core reporting basis, okay, which is 1,000. And in this case, when I created this report, I said I wanted there to be a parameter when somebody runs it to put in their entity, or in this case, my company. So I'll pick company 100, Apex, Indiana. And then here's that balance type that we talked about, where you can select natural balance or financial report balance, right? And then the fiscal year and month. So our test system is a little bit behind. It's in, so I'm going to change this to fiscal year 2024 and fiscal month 4, and then click on submit. I could, of course, click on schedule, right? So you can always do that and schedule, if you want to run the report on schedule and so on. That's standard functionality within the job. But I'm just going to click on submit here. And once it does that in the upper right here, it'll say my run report's been submitted. Notice that this is now grayed out, the run report, because it's currently running. If you wanted to, you could go into async and see if the report, is running. Or if I go back to, let's say, my report designer log, I could see if it's completed here. Okay. And it has the time. So I can see that, yep, it ran very quickly and it's already done. So here's my log. But how do I actually get my output? Like how do I get to my report? So they give you 2 ways to get at your report. One is through notifications on the bottom left here, right? So there's my report right there. So I could click on it here and open it, right? And there it is. It's a PDF report. So I had just submitted this. The report had an account row, right? So I had all these revenue deductions, all these different accounts, things like that. So this is what my report looks like. If I go back to, sorry about that. If I go back to, sorry, I have duplicate sessions here. If I go back here to notifications, as I mentioned, I could get to the report today from here, and it tells me that this one was run today, and which one I've already opened, so it'll have a check mark here. Or I can go to the report catalog. If I go to the report catalog, typically it opens up here, with your standard reports, right? But you would want to go to print files here, and I can open up my report from here as well, right? So let me see. I have it open already, but let me close it. And I'll just get to it from here. This is nice because it has the exact time that the report was run. So if I click on it here, it'll open up as a PDF once more. And here are my results. Okay. Previously, I had run a balance sheet report. So I'd run some earlier this morning so that I have them readily available here. So if I click on my balance sheet report here, for example, right? Oh, this was an Excel. Sorry. If I click on this one, right, this was an Excel report. So I guess let's take a look at that. We'll open it up in Excel. And we'll take a look at it in PDF as well. I think it's opening. It's a little bit slow. There it goes. Here's my report in Excel. So as opposed, when I did the run report, I said that I wanted to have the output as Excel output, not CSV or PDF. And so you can see I have the report here. And if I'm in Excel, I can scroll down here. And maybe as I go down, I see that there's something, let's say, for example, in suspense, inventory return suspense. So I'm in Excel here, and I'm going to just click on this amount for 28. Okay. And, usually don't get that. Usually pops up immediately. And then it's going to show me my drill back information, right? So here's the drill information that makes up that 28. In this case, there's a transaction from AP and PO, and you can see the amount here is 2760. Okay. So it launched this drill back for me. I'm going to close this right now, right? And if I had looked at if I had opened up the same report or run the same report as I did here earlier, I believe this is a PDF report. If I go here, it'll open up as a PDF, and I can do the same thing here. If I want to drill on something, maybe I go down and I say, oh, here's that suspense again. Here's the 28. Let me see what makes that up. I can just click on it here as well. And of course, it'll open the drill back in this case for the same information, right? And there it is for 2760. Now in this case, because I opened the drill from the PDF, I'm just going to click on the back arrow to get back to my report. Okay. Let's go back into the report catalog, and I'm going to go back as staff accountant back into my reports and click on Report Designer. And I apologize, I'm running a little bit over here, folks. It's just one more thing I wanted to show you. If I go back to my dashboard here, I just wanted to show you another report very quickly here in terms of the row dimensions. Here's a report, right, where I use a different row file, and here's my 2 dimensions that I have available. So it's kind of similar to that other example that we talked about. So this is department listing with account. So if I go back to, let's say, my report catalog, I did run that report earlier. So I'm in print files here. And here's my department listing with account. Here it is right here. I can show it to you. As I mentioned, I ran it earlier. So this looks like the report with the more than one dimension as we had before, right? And so it's laid out here. The report had the columns that were fixed. In other words, my fiscal year runs from January to December, like a standard Gregorian calendar. And so I set up these columns so they're fixed. So it doesn't matter what month I really run this report in. It's always going to have all 12 columns here. Okay. And I had another report similar to this, which is a department listing as well, which I can show you. And this one's a little bit different, of course, because it's just the one dimension. Okay. So I just wanted to show that to you as well. And let's go back to our dashboard, and let's just go through one more exercise to create a report. Typically, when you're about to create a new report from scratch, you would want to see if you have any rows that exist that you can leverage or any columns. But if you don't, you would typically always go here and start and click on the Rows tab and start a new report row. So here, if I clicked on Create a New Row, it would launch that for me, and I could create a new one from scratch. Obviously, if there's a row here I can use already, then of course that would be best. And right now, this one here, account row with levels, it shows me is just one dimension for the chart account. And also, if you want to see what other reports are using this row, by the way, you can see that here as well by clicking on the Associated Reports tab. Okay, but this may not fit the bill for me, so let me go in and create a new row very quickly here from scratch. And so I'll put in my row name. Okay. So I'll just say I wanted to create posting accounts. Okay. I can lock this row. Okay. Posting accounts 2. I believe I already have one ready. So here I'll just indicate that I want posting accounts. Okay. I'll click on save. And then once I do that, my dimension details will appear on the bottom here. And so I can either click here on Add Dimension to Row or click on the blue Add Dimension to Row button here, either one. And that'll bring me here. And this is where it gets interesting. So here, the first thing I want to do is indicate my dimension. So if I go to the drop-down pick list here, you can see I have various choices. And in this case, so I could say company or department. I'm going to go down and just select account and hit OK. All right. And in this case, I could say that I want only my summary levels from my chart, or in this case, maybe just my posting levels. Or I could say I want to start at, I want all 6 levels starting with level 1. Okay. And if you do that, you have to put an indent on the bottom here. Okay. So I'll put that in there, and I'm going to click on save just to show you the dimension preview. Oh, sorry. I skipped the column size. Let me put that in. And I want to show you the dimension preview here. If you do select levels, so in my chart of accounts, I have hierarchy, and that's what this represents. But if I opt to just have my posting level only, you'll notice that those options will disappear. I don't really need the indent anymore. I still need the column size. And here in the display value, this is where I could select if I want the code, the description, or both, okay, which we touched on that earlier. If I will have multiple dimensions, I could say I want to repeat this display value down every row. And then the column header automatically defaults here to account. You can change this if you want, but it cannot be blank. If you leave it blank, it'll just put that in again for you. And that's it. So let's save it now here and see how the dimension preview changes. You can see it's considerably different. And notice in the column header, it now says account. Okay. But I've just created my first row, which if I go back here, I can now use that in a report. Okay. I just wanted to point out one other thing here is if you are working the system and creating rows and columns, there is a breadcrumb trail on the top here. So if you wanted to, you can always go back, using the breadcrumbs here. So you can always do that as well. Sometimes it's quicker if you need to. So in this case, I've created my row. So I guess I can click back one more time, and it'll bring me here to my row dimension. And I'll hit back one more time. Then this is the rows. Okay, and it probably would have been faster had I just used my breadcrumbs. But ultimately, I can get back here to my listing. Okay, and I think here it is on the very bottom here. It's posting accounts row 2. So now I could use that in a report. So I would simply go here to the reports tab, okay, which we briefly saw earlier, and just click on create report. And I'm going to go in and create a report name. I could call it whatever I would like. Okay, I'm just going to say IS monthly report. Okay, I can lock this report if I wanted to, right? So no one else can alter it. It's not a composite report, but I could indicate here, to include the fiscal year and fiscal month quarter. Okay, month or quarter, and this will be title 4 essentially. So notice here it says title 1, title 2, title 3. Title 1, you do have to put something in here. Okay. So you do have, that is required. And like I said, this check mark here for the fiscal year and month or quarter, right, will effectively be title 3. Okay. I'm sorry, effectively title 4. Sorry about that. You can put in other things here if you want to put in other things in these other titles as well. Okay. And you can put in a report description here. The important thing, if I scroll down here, is tying everything together with my rows and columns. So I can go in here and just, let me expand this a little bit, go in and say that I want to use my new row file for posting accounts. And I want to select the column here that already exists, let's say. And I want my 12 periods fixed, let's say. Okay, something like that. Keep it simple. And at this point, I have everything that I need to start the report creation. So I'll click on Save. Once I clicked on Save here, I do need to go in and do a couple more things. I need to do report selection and potentially report parameters. Now, why do I need to go into the report selection? Well, in my row file, I indicated that I wanted accounts, but I didn't say which accounts, right? So how does it know that I want income statement accounts or balance sheet accounts, or maybe I just want expenses, right? How does it know? So you would go into the selection here and you'd have to click create selection. and then you'd have to indicate the dimension for that. And if you do pick account, right, or chart account here and save it, this is the only one that will have these three choices as far as your dimension filters, right? It's the only one like this. And so you can go in here and say, I want to add a dimension filter for my structure. And I want to go in and specify maybe a particular account within my hierarchy. So I could go in here and select whatever I want, or I could just say income statement. Okay, I'm going to cancel this just so you can see it. Or I could go into this second filter here for chart section, and I could just say, well, I just want my income statement. I could do that. Okay. Or I can go in here, and I'm going to cancel that and just say, I want a particular account type. I just want revenue, for example, possibly, something like that. Okay. In my case here, I'm going to go back to the chart selection filter and pick income statement and hit submit. And now it says the add chart selection filter has been completed. Okay. So if I go back now to my report, okay, I now have this selection. So now the system knows specifically what accounts in that row file I want it to pick up. And if this is going to be a public report, I may want to have parameters. So if other users, when they go and run the report, and if they're not power users, but they're just allowed to run reports, I may want to give them the option to run the report for a particular entity. So I'm going to go in here and put in a dimension for my company and say that I want that to be a parameter. Okay, and so now it says parameters created. If I hit the back arrow, it'll take me here and I'm done. Now, you do not have to do preview parameters. That's optional. This is if you want to preview your format. So you could fill this in. It says here, you know, go to the action on the top to put in your preview parameters, which is here. This is actually not required. You don't have to do that. It's just if you want to see, is the report looking as I expected it to in my mockup, right? And it'll generate the first 100 rows of your report. But it's not the same as running the report, and it is not required. So at this point, I'm essentially done. Except for the fact that my status says not generated. So remember, you always have to generate your report. So I'll do that right now. So I'm going to submit that. So I clicked on generate report on top here, and it should be done any second. This is the first time, but it was relatively quick. It says status generated, and now I'm able to run my report if I need to, right? Same parameters I had before, including this one for accounting entity, right? Which I said I wanted, to be available. I have to put in my reporting basis first. That's my core reporting basis. And I want this report, because it's a public report, to be able to have that parameter for people to select that. I'm going to cancel that because I don't really need to run the report anymore. But just wanted to finish up here and go back to the dashboard and kind of just show you, the overview. My apologies. And kind of just show you the new report that we just created. Okay. Sorry about the time. I apologize for having run over. But if you do have any questions, you can use this QR code to access our APEX YouTube channel.